So often I talk to parents who are trying to help their toddlers learn to talk and doing everything that they can or that they know to do, but they're really just focusing on talking, which seems like it should be logical, right? If you want your toddler to talk, then try to get them to talk. They're doing things like say this word, make these sounds, what's that? They're asking their child to talk more, which seems like it should make sense. But today we're going to talk about how when it comes to toddler language skills, talking is the very tip of the iceberg. There's so much underneath that needs to be in place before your child can just start saying words. Okay, so we're really going to um, take a big look at what language development entails. Okay, another way to think about it, if iceberg doesn't do it for you, I was gonna say doesn't float your boat. I feel like that kind of goes with iceberg. Anyway, it's been a long day, guys. Um, think of a house, right? So if you imagine you're building a house, the words are going to be the roof. The actual talking is going to be the roof. You need to have a strong foundation. You need to have walls. You need to have your ceilings. You need to have everything else in place before you can put that roof on. And if you try to put that roof on before the rest of the house is built, it's not going to stay up, right? So if you try to get your child to say words and they don't have those foundational skills in place, it's going to fall flat. All right. So does that resonate with anybody? Does anyone either have you experienced that, or have you been just trying to get your child to say words and it's not working? And this is kind of like a, oh, aha moment. Maybe I'm asking my child to do something and they don't have the foundational skills for it. Yeah, Nora says, yay, the hierarchy. This is such an important point. It really is. This is kind of the crux of helping a toddler learn to talk, because if we're just going at it at the word level, if we're just trying to get kids to say words and sentences, we're missing out on so many more things that we could be helping them with that would really help prop up those words. All right. So I'm hoping that most of you have the workbook handy, or at least on your screen, if not printed out, for day 3. There's a graphic there that will be really helpful, and a whole list of skills that you can follow along with and maybe make notes along with as we're talking. If not, you can always go back. But we're going to go through a lot of the underlying skills that a child needs to have. All right, cool. This is making sense to you guys. Yes, Anna says makes sense. Olivia makes so much sense. Love it. Nora, can't expect a child who can't sit to walk. Exactly, right. We need to, we'll talk more tomorrow about meeting a child where they are. All right, but first we need to know what the map looks like, right? Where are the places that they could possibly be? We're going to look at all these different skills, and I want you to start thinking about which of these might be a strength for your child and which may be a challenge. All right, if you see me looking down, I'm just checking my notes because I don't want to miss anything. Like I said, we're covering a lot today. All right, you guys in? You ready? You ready to dive into all of these skills? All right, so there are 5 C's that we're going to cover today. All right, connection, concentration, comprehension, communication, and clarity. So in general, a child needs to have some proficiency in the lower level skills before they can master the higher level skills. All right, Lindsay's with me. Woohoo! I've already given you a lot of detail in the workbook, so I'm not going to just read the whole list of all those things, but we're going to talk about each of these big 5 areas in a little bit more detail. Now, you're not going to hear anybody else talk about the 5 C's because this is my framework. This is how I've broken it down for you guys. Let's start with connection, okay? Connection is social skills, how your child interacts and engages with other people. So this could be things like noticing others, even taking turns in interactions. I'm not talking about, doing a board game and my turn, your turn, but maybe rolling a ball back and forth is an example of taking turns, or maybe taking turns doing peekaboo, taking turns in a more organic, social sort of way. Connection also includes just knowing, understanding the power of communication, that you can direct the actions and thoughts of another person by telling them something, by communicating something to them, right? That is so powerful. And a child has to understand that before they can move on to these other levels. All right, my mouth is dry. 1 second. Mm. All right. Now, connection is a two-way street, right? It's not always on the child to learn how to connect with you. Some children, especially autistic children, have their own ways of connecting with people. So, a lot of times, the caregivers, the adults, the parents need to learn, need to observe how their child likes to connect and meet them um, in that way of connecting. So, it's not always about getting your child to interact the way that you want them to interact. It's about building connection in a way that is reciprocal and in a way um, that honors the way that your child likes to connect with other people. All right. This is really the basis for all communication, right? If you're not connecting, then there's really no point in communicating. Communication is all about connection. So if your child is really struggling, especially if they're having trouble in speech therapy, they might need to back on up and really fortify that connection piece and your child's intent to communicate and understanding that engaging with other people is something that is safe and is fun and is worth their effort. So connection is just such an important foundational piece. All right, guys, you with me on connection? Someone give me a thumbs up. Give me a I'm with you. This day is a little bit heavy on the content. It's a little bit heavy on the meat of it. So I just want to check in and make sure that everyone is with me. All right, I see a bunch of likes. Yes, thumbs. Awesome. Okay, let's keep moving then. All right, so once that connection piece is up and moving, and I shouldn't say that it's it's not like we work on one thing and then once that's mastered, then we can work on the next level. A lot of times these things kind of organically come together simultaneously, but we really do need to think about which skills might be missing at lower levels that need to be fortified before we can really expect to see progress at higher levels. All right, concentration. I use the word concentration here to really mean cognitive or thinking skills. So this is things like attention, like paying attention, remembering, your child's memory skills, joint attention, which is noticing what somebody else is noticing and being aware of each other's attention. I also include sensory regulation under this level. So by that, I mean feeling comfortable and calm in your own body. It's really hard to concentrate if you don't feel at ease, right? I mean, have you ever been, like trying to work on something or trying to read a book and there's some construction noise going on outside, right? Or maybe you're wearing like a shirt that's really itchy. You're not going to be able to focus. Maybe if the lights are like in your eyes, it's going to be harder to focus. So sometimes if our bodies don't feel like they're comfortable, safe, at ease, we're not going to be able to be learning. And that's a lot to ask of a small child to be able to learn if they don't already feel at ease. So I include sensory regulation in this level of concentration because a child won't be able to concentrate if they're not able to feel comfortable. It's such an important area that sometimes gets overlooked. So if you do feel like your child might need some help feeling regulated, sometimes that can mean they need more movement. Sometimes it can mean they need more or less sound. It can mean they need different things to look at or to not look at, right? An occupational therapist is an amazing resource for helping you sort that out. Sometimes once that gets sorted out, your child is more receptive to learning. All right, so concentration, important cognitive skills in that area. So let's move on to comprehension. Comprehension is understanding, right? What does your child understand? Can they follow directions? Can they point to something that you labeled? It's really at its core about connecting meaning to words, to those sounds that we make with our mouth, right? It's about making that connection. So a lot of times, parents will say, oh, my child understands everything I say. And when I dig a little deeper, they're understanding some of what the parent is saying. They're understanding the things that the parent says all day long and the things that are really habitual in their routine. But if you say something kind of that they haven't heard before or that, isn't really commonly said to them, they're a little bit lost. So I always encourage parents to really look at that comprehension piece. Sometimes shoring up a child's comprehension can really improve what they're able to say, because you can't, well, for many children, they're not going to say words if they don't understand them. Now, there is a caveat here. Some children learn language by repeating chunks of speech that they've heard. So you might have heard the term echolalia or delayed echolalia. This is common in a lot of autistic toddlers, and also some children who are not autistic will use this this means of learning language. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's a different pathway. So if your child is repeating chunks of speech, they may not necessarily be understanding each individual word, but they've ascribed a meaning to that chunk of language. And there's a whole different specialized way of supporting a child who's learning language that way. It's the type of language learning is called Gestalt language processing. So again, this hierarchy is not always, first you complete your concentration, then you complete your comprehension. It's often a little more mixed up, but it's important to have it in mind that a lot of times we're working on levels that are just too high for our children. And if they don't have those lower levels shored up, then we're really wasting everyone's time and just making everyone frustrated. So I really want you to think, as we're talking here, where does your child fall? Which levels do they seem to have mastered? Which levels seem to be more challenging? And remember, within each of these levels, there are different hierarchies. So your child may have some skills within one level, but need a little bit of help with maybe some later developing skills. It's a lot to tease out here. I get it. But I don't want you to get overwhelmed, okay? Because think back to day one, right? Remember that high rating that you gave when I asked how confident you were that you were the person to help your toddler learn to talk? Stick with that. I don't want all this information to be lowering that rating. I just want you to see that you still have all those unique traits to be the best person to teach your toddler to talk. You just need some support. You just need someone to teach you this stuff so that you can pinpoint where your child is and apply some strategies to build up these skills. It really doesn't have to be that hard, right? We talked about yesterday why it doesn't have to be so tricky. All right. Let me check my comments here. All right, guys, we are chugging along here. We got 3 of our C's down. Now we are on communication. Now, I chose the word communication to keep that C thing going, but I really am talking about a very narrow definition of communication. I'm talking about communicating a message to somebody else. Really expressive language is what we're talking about here. Now, it doesn't have to be spoken. It could be signs. It could be using pictures. It could be spoken language. So in this level, we're talking about using the words that a child knows. And within this level, copying is another, we'll say it's a bonus C. Copying is another skill that is so important and also follows a hierarchy. So within communication, copying is another skill that very often is an area that is targeted, that you can target at home with your child once you understand how to do that. All right, and then last but not least, clarity. So clarity is how well the sounds are coming out. You might hear this referred to as pronunciation or articulation. And clarity, I usually do not touch clarity until a child is already trying to communicate, right? So if your child is not really trying to communicate yet, it really doesn't matter how they're pronouncing their sounds. We need a child to have some of those foundational skills, And then once we see what they can do, then we can work on shoring up some of the speech sounds. Now, there are some children who are going to be held back by this clarity piece, and for those kids, we may intervene a little bit sooner. But in general, if your child is not talking, then we're going to focus on those lower levels before we worry too much about getting them to say the right sounds. All right. I've been talking for a long time here. I hope that you guys are still with me. Let me follow my notes here and make sure that I haven't missed anything important yet. All right. Did you guys learn something new? Did you learn something new as we went through all these steps? I know for a lot of people, you may not necessarily have thought of all these things that impact communication. A lot of times we just think talking is talking, and it's something that, a child can do or can't do. But really, there are all these other skills that a child needs. And when we can really break it down, when we can really think about where the breakdowns are, we can get really specific and really effective in improving a child's skills, so that we're filling in these blocks, we're building up that pyramid and giving a child a really strong foundation. Okay, Emily, does oral motor strengthening go hand in hand with clarity or other issues I hear in there? Yeah, so oral motor strengthening is usually to improve clarity. There are some children who may not be talking because of excessive weakness. I find that's very rare. Typically, even if a child has weakness, they're still going to be attempting verbal communication. So there's definitely a place for improving oral musculature. I would say most children don't need it, but some do. And typically it comes after a child is doing a lot of these other skills. All right. So let me know, guys. Did you learn something? Is there something something here that you picked up that you didn't know before? A new skill maybe that you hadn't really considered before? All right. And let those comments come on in. And we'll keep talking. All right. So when, oh, Nora, make this. Okay, so yeah, there's something new, Gestalt language. Some children are dual processors, so they might use those chunks of speech, and they might also generate their own language. So something to look into. Yes. Oh my gosh. Gestalt language processing, even for SLPs, has been such a light bulb for a lot of us. We're saying like, oh, that totally fits to how my kiddos are learning to talk. And there's so much we can do there. All right, Lindsay, the diagram's helpful. Okay, stuck at the same spot. Yes, sometimes we just need to switch up our strategies a little bit to make sure we're targeting the right areas. All right. So when we know which particular strategies, or rather which particular skills are a little shaky, we know exactly what to do. We can pick the strategies that we know help those skills and build them up. I hope that this is starting to kind of make sense with what we talked about yesterday with strategies, right? Now you can see what I meant when I said that strategies can be really targeted and really effective, because we can target these specific skills. All right. You can see how it's a lot more nuanced, right, than just read to your child or talk to them more. It's a lot more nuanced, and it doesn't have to be complicated, even though there is a lot to consider. You know your child so well, and with the help of a professional who can guide you through this, you're the best person to be implementing these strategies. We already established that, right? So I will see you guys tomorrow. We'll be talking about kind of where to start, how to back up and build up from your child's skills. And this is really the crux of teaching toddlers to talk successfully. So I'm excited to go into that with you guys tomorrow. All right. Hope everyone has a great day, and I will catch y'all tomorrow. Same time, same place, all right? 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Take Take care, guys.